The truth behind deleted scenes, Jamie Dornan and Dakota on the line between role and real life. Jamie Dornan opened his eyes in the dark. The living room of his rented apartment on a side street in Dublin was so quiet he could hear the clock ticking. Outside the window, street lights were dim in the light mist. He sat up, reaching for his phone, the green screen flickering in his eyes. A message from the film crew flashed. Deleted scene, edit confirmed. Jamie had never felt his heart pounding so hard before. What scene had been deleted? Why? And, more importantly, what secret was being hidden? The first bits. Late the night before, Jamie had received a preview at home, a near-finished cut of the film he was starring in with Dakota Johnson, tentatively titled, The Afterglow of Dawn. The director had sent him a private link so Jamie could review the final scenes, including scenes that weren't certain to make it into the final release. Jamie watched, caught up in the emotions of Lucas, his character, and Elise, Dakota. There were scenes that seemed impossible to overpower: dim lighting, breathing, silence, tears, unspoken words. And then, just before the climax of what Jamie thought would be shot 43, the scene where Lucas confronts Elise amid the silence and rain, the video stopped abruptly. The scene was missing. There was a gap. The sound was just the wind, the shot skipping to another shot. Jamie jumped up, heart pounding. Emailed the director asking for the full version. Texted Dakota, "Do you know why the scene between Lucas and Elise was cut?" Dakota replied late, "I didn't get to see those parts. I never heard anyone explain." That's when Jamie began to suspect it wasn't just cut for time. Jamie's internal struggle. Jamie couldn't sleep that night. The missing scene played over and over in his mind. Elise standing in the light rain, Lucas sitting by the window, the street lights shimmering, the raindrops on the glass. Elise stepping forward, her trembling hand reaching to touch, Lucas turning to look, his eyes lingering between hope and despair, and then, silence. He thought about the full line, "I thought if you had never come to me." But he hadn't heard it spoken. Just thinking about it made his throat tighten. He studied the script, the original. Every line was clearly written. The climax, the part where Lucas wanted to say everything, was cut from the director's cut. Why? Jamie thought. Because it was too real. Because it revealed something about Elise that the crew didn't want the public to know. For fear of backlash? For fear of scandal? But what scandal? He remembered the first day Dakota played Elise. They had a script reading together. Dakota told Jamie, when they were doing love scenes, "Please keep quiet but look at each other in the most genuine way. When the eyes are real, the whole audience will see the realness," Dakota said. And Jamie knew, Elise was not just a role, Dakota had brought a part of himself to it. The night of the internal screening. One night, the crew held an internal screening for the big producers. Jamie was invited early. He sat in the very back seat of the small theater. The tension was suffocating. The film ran, the image appeared on the big screen. The beginning was good, very good, the lighting, the sound, the emotions were all right. Lucas and Elise found each other again. There were moments when they seemed to find peace. But when the climax came, there was no auditorium, the screen went black for a second, the sound stopped, and then the next scene. Someone in the front row whispered, "They must want to keep that part a secret." Another person shook his head. Jamie saw Dakota. She was sitting next to some extras. Her face was cold, her eyes red, but she kept quiet. After the screening, everyone applauded, but Jamie knew there was something left unsaid, a big gap in the story. The secret meeting. Jamie decided to find out. He called a friend in post, Martin, the sound editor and special effects guy. They arranged to meet at a small tea shop in the middle of the city. Light rain outside the window, the tea shop empty. Martin appeared, his face more stoic than usual. They sat, placing 2 cups of hot tea on the table. Jamie was blunt. Why was the climactic scene between Lucas and Elise completely deleted from the preview? I read the script. It was there. Dakota shot it. Martin looked around, gently latched the door, and sat closer to him. I know more than anyone else. Elise cried a lot. Jamie, that scene wasn't just about the script, it was about more than Elise's role. It reveals a very personal secret of Dakota's. What secret? Jamie asks. Is it something to do with who she wants people to think Elise is, but she's actually gone through something the script doesn't say? Martin takes a breath, confused. Dakota, when she plays Elise, she brings into the role a part of who she used to be, things that happened when she was younger, that she didn't want anyone to know. The film, originally, wanted to explore that part. Joel, the uncredited supporting character, was written based on someone very close to Dakota, a traumatic relationship she experienced but never shared publicly. The climax, Lucas to Elise, written to push Elise to the breaking point, to let her tell it all, accept it all, forgive, despair, and then accept it. Jamie entered the first stage. So she went through the same thing? He asked. Martin looked at Jamie for a moment and shook his head. Not exactly the same, but the feeling, the emotional structure, it was real. Dakota wanted it to be clear. But some producers were afraid, if people knew that Elise was too close a reflection of Dakota, too much personal element, there would be gossip. There would be people saying the director was using his personal life to polish the role. Someone would find the person Joel was writing after. There would be private things left out. And the crew decided to protect Dakota, delete that scene. Jamie felt a little lightness come through him. Protect, but also hide. He wondered, did Dakota agree? Did Dakota know in advance? Or was she forced to keep him stay? Martin produced a small copy, incomplete, of the deleted scene, just the image, no sound. In it, Elise stood in a dark room, Lucas near the window. Elise turned on the desk lamp, a small light shining on her face. She bowed her head long. Lucas stepped forward. The single camera alert put his hand on her shoulder. Their eyes, in the dark frame, something too heavy. Just looking at it was enough to make the viewer shiver. I don't want you to look, Martin said. I'm afraid if everyone, saw the sound, the complete words, it would hurt Dakota. Jamie was silent, eyes on the small screen of the laptop. The alert returned to the first loop. Elise wanted to talk, wanted to resolve, Lucas wanted to listen. But the silence between them was louder than any words, Dakota and the explanation. Jamie decided to talk to Dakota. He texted, "Can we talk about the deleted scene?" Dakota replied a few hours later, "Meet me whenever you want." They met at a small park by the river, as the sunset began to tinge the water. A light breeze blew through the trees, and leaves fell here and there. Dakota arrived, smiling softly, wearing a loose coat. He looked at her, her eyes were a little tired but strong. They walked along the gravel path, the sunset light on her hair burned a golden color. Jamie started, "Dakota, I'll look at the preview, then find out." Martin said the scene was deleted because it had something very personal to you. She stopped walking, turned back to look at him. "Do you have a copy of that scene without the sound?" she asked. Yes. Martin showed it to her. But he hadn't heard the dialogue. Dakota nodded. "Do you want to hear it?" she said. "I want to share with you, but I'm also afraid." Jamie is silent, looking at her. I want to understand. I want to know if there's something you want to protect. And I want to know if you're okay. Dakota takes a breath, her eyes distant. That scene, the complete dialogue, is Elise saying, I chose to stay silent not because I didn't want to talk, but because I was afraid that if I did, my whole being would be seen as someone who was forever damaged, with no way out. And Lucas's dialogue, is, I thought if you believed that I could heal that wound, you wouldn't leave. She continues, those are words I wrote for Elise, but I wrote them thinking about myself every day when I was still wild, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid that others would only look at the scratches and not at the person trying to stand up. Jamie put his hand on her shoulder. You don't have to explain it to anyone, but if you want, you can reveal that part. If you want to say, I was there. But if you don't want to, you have the right to keep it to yourself. Dakota looked at him for a long time. I thought it would be best if I kept it to myself. I was afraid people would only want to hear about the pain, not want to understand the healing process. I was afraid I would be defined by the damage. Jamie was silent, watching her face as the sunset streamed across her, the shadows of the trees cast on her. He understood the journey Dakota had taken. From the moment she first received the script, then acting, then having to choose between letting the role delve into her deepest self or protecting herself. Decision. Finally, they walked back to the production together. Dakota decided to talk to the director and producers about bringing back the dialogue, at least in the special edition or the director's cut, with a clear caption, this scene contains personal content for the actor. If possible, she wanted the audience to understand that Elise was not just a role, but a part of a story she had lived. Jamie agreed to help. He wrote an email to the director, speaking up about respecting the actor's feelings, about her right to tell her true story if she wanted, about not covering up her wounds for fear of public opinion. Not to provoke sympathy, but to open a door to understanding that acting was not just art but also honesty.